Hi there, in this video we're going to look at how you can use Archiware P5 with one of these cloud transfer devices. So the Backblaze Fireball, for example, the intention is that you, the user, can get these NAS devices shipped to you from the cloud provider, which can speed up the transfer of data into a cloud bucket. And with P5 you might want to use this with a backup or an archive to get lots of data shifted from on-prem into the cloud without having to copy it all over the internet initially. And yeah, Backblaze have something called the Fireball. Amazon Web Services have something called a Snowball, which as you can see, they send you a snowball, goes in a truck, and stuff gets copied to the cloud. And then we also have Wasabi, have a ball transfer appliance, which looks like this, which they can send to you. All of these devices have various different capacities as far as I know, and it might be that you need to use more than one of them to get all the data shifted off-site into the cloud so that you can then continue the workflow just by using cloud storage. So let's have a look at how we do this with Archiware. So I've got a P5 version 7 installation here, which I'm going to log into. All I've done so far is put a license key in here, so there's no config taken place so far. For the purposes of this example, we're going to do a backup. So we're going to seed a backup using a transfer device into Amazon S3 cloud. So to begin, what I've done is I've got my transfer device mounted up here. I'm actually kind of faking this by just using an external hard drive, but in the case of actually getting one of these devices shipped to you, you'll just need to be able to target your backup storage onto that device. So it might be that you mount the transfer device via SMB protocol or NFS, or some of them are accessed via S3. But ultimately you need to be able to configure P5 to write data onto this device. So that's what we're going to do. So with the backup tab highlighted, I go into my storage manager, and what we need to do is create a local container for our backup storage initially, and then that will become a cloud container in a few minutes. So we're going to add local storage by clicking here, and I'm going to target my backup to the root of this transfer device. So in order to do that, I can just highlight the transfer device like so. And then you'll see, well, since we're using a Mac for our P5 server, the transfer device mounts under the volumes directory. This may be different depending on the operating system that you're using. And the storage name, I'm just going to change that to local disk backup. And so we can apply that. And then P5 tells us that it's created a storage pool, and there'll be a volume, a single volume, which is a container volume, which can grow as large as you need within that pool. So that's all good. We can close that. So far you see nothing's been written to the transfer device. That's fine. So now that we have a storage pool that you can see here, which is going to write data onto the transfer device, we can go ahead and make a backup plan. So let's make a new backup plan. Let's call it. Okay, and the folder that I'm going to back up is from the local machine, and it's actually just going to be the user's admin folder. There's about 40 gigabytes in there. So I've specified what I want to back up. I now create a backup event which will be going to my local disk backup pool. So that's the pool which is currently targeted to send the data to the transfer device here. And I don't need to set a schedule for it because I'm just going to run it manually in a second. So let's apply the changes. So let's begin our backup. Now, like I said, there's about 40 gig to back up, about 45 gig, I think. So I'm going to do this in two chunks. So I'm going to show you how it would work if you need to use more than one transfer device to get all your data into the cloud. So when I run this backup job manually, I can choose how much data I want to actually get written. So by this particular run of the job. So let's say 25 gigabytes to start with. And we say start now. This will commence the running of the backup job, which we can monitor in the job monitor window here. And as that starts running, we should see some data or at least a config folder written by P5 onto our transfer device. So this job will save about 25 gig. What seems to happen is it'll attempt to stop the job at 25 gig, but it'll save some more data in order that it's finishing saving the files that it's currently writing. So that's what's happening at the moment. Looking at the job monitor, we can see that we're saving about 230 megabytes a second. This is an SSD, so it's fairly quick. And we can see that so far we've saved 8 gigabytes. Let's roll forward until that job's completed. Okay, so our job finished. It didn't actually save 25 gig. Not sure why that is quite, because there's more than 25 gig in the folder, but let's not worry about that. And that data has been saved into this config folder over here. So if we actually have a little look at what's inside that config folder, you can see that P5 creates a fairly complex directory structure inside, but ultimately our data has been saved within these files, these P5B files. So there's a bunch of those files which are comprise the data from that user's admin folder that we backed up. Now, at this point, I will be connecting a second transfer device, so we're emulating the situation where you have more than one. So what I'm actually going to do now is copy the contents of all of these, all of this data that you can see here to a cloud bucket in Amazon S3, and then I'm going to empty the transfer device so that we can show how it works if you need more than one transfer device. So let me just do that and I'll come straight back to you. That's all done. So the transfer device, we now have our second transfer device here, which is mounted at the same point. And I've just copied the contents of it, the first one, to the cloud bucket. So you can see in here now that the config folder now exists in this bucket called P5 archive demo, which we're going to hook Archiware up to in a few minutes. So we need to finish our backup by using this second transfer device here. So what we'll do is simply run the backup again. This time I'm going to let the backup finish because it's running an incremental. So I'm just going to hit start now, and then the remaining data will go onto that transfer device. I'm not going to restrict how much gets written. So again, we monitor the job. We see the config folder that's just appeared in the transfer device, and we'll see how much data we're going to write to finish this backup. So like I said, I think it's about 45 gig. Let's wind forward to where it finishes. Okay, so the job completed, saved a further 20 gigabytes. So between these two cloud backup tasks, we've saved that folder. And in this config folder, again, will be a bunch of container files. These ones here, these ones here, which have actually got the actual data in. And those need to be added to the cloud bucket by me at this point to emulate the sending back of the transfer devices to the cloud vendor and having them copied to the bucket of your choice. So let me just do that now. I'll add those to the cloud bucket. And so the contents of the transfer device is again copied to the cloud bucket. We're done with the transfer device, so we can eject that one now. And now we need to do a little bit of reconfiguration of Archiware so that it's no longer expecting the data to be on the transfer device, but in the cloud bucket where the data now resides. So our first step is to add the details about the cloud service where the data now lives. So we do that by adding a new service in here, which is going to be an Amazon S3 bucket. Let me just put these credentials in. Okay, so that gets me connected to my bucket. I'll just test the connection. Everything checks out. I'm on a gigabit internet connection, so I'm going to use 6 parallel upload and download streams, which should get me closer to fully using my gigabytes worth of bandwidth. So with that, the cloud service that we just set up is called Amazon, by the way. We need to remember that. What we do next is go to the volume that we've been writing our data to, come in here to edit that one, and we need to tell the volume that it's now located on the cloud service. So we do that by clicking the pencil and then choosing the Amazon cloud service from the drop down, apply that and close. And the final step is to go to the storage pool, double click on that one, and we now need to modify the local directory where the data is now going to be cached whilst it's being uploaded and downloaded with the cloud. So you see here it tells us that a container volume requires a directory on a local file system. Even if the data is going to be stored in the cloud, Archiware still needs a directory that it can use for assembling objects of data ready for upload, and also when restoring it needs a place where it can restore objects from the cloud whilst it's restoring data back to disk. This is a transient piece of storage, so files are written here temporarily whilst uploading and downloading to the cloud, but ultimately are deleted. So instead of leaving this on the transfer device, I'll come in here and we'll edit this, and I'm going to use a directory on this external SSD for this purpose. So we'll just call this AA Cloud Cache, so we can easily find that one at the top of the list. So that's going to be my cache directory. We'll apply that change and close the window. Okay, and now we're done. So the next step would be to test that this works. So in order to do that, we're going to restore some data. So if we go to our backup index for localhost, we'll see that users admin folder that we backed up. If we look on the desktop folder, I've got a Final Cut project which is fairly large, in fact comprises most of the backup. So let's restore all of that to and relocate it to somewhere where I'm happy for it to go. So we'll put that in, make a new folder called AA Restore. Select that folder, click Next, and P5 will tell us both the size of the restore, and it'll also tell us that it's going to use this local disk backup volume, which I should have given a better name to because it's no longer local, which is online. So if we hit Start and monitor the job, what we should see happening now is data being downloaded from the cloud in order to fulfill this restore. Let's again wind forward to the point where this job is finished, and then we can have a look at what it did. You can see the restore job completed, and it downloaded 37.5 gigabytes from the cloud, which approximately equals the two jobs which we wrote to the local storage. So that concludes how to do this. And also obviously note that any further backups that we run will write to the cloud storage, and any restores will read from the cloud storage. So yeah, I hope that's all clear. Thanks for watching.